In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made a beat in the style of a piano/acoustic pop ballad. Artists which you can associate with this kind of music would be Lewis Capaldi, Dean Lewis, even maybe Ed Sheeran at a push as well. So if you are new to the channel, smash the subscribe button right now as it's the best way to support the channel. But let's not waste any time, let's jump into Logic and let's break down this beat. Okay, so as you can see, I built up this production in Logic, and I'm going to break this track down, how I actually built the track up, so you can get the best understanding of how I built it. Today we're starting at the piano, because the piano is how I started the track. I just literally got up Native Instruments Grandeur. You'll see this is the piano software that I like to use. The Grandeur, I think, straight out the tin in the preset is just really nice sounding, so I always like to use this, especially for this type of music. And the only thing I've got in terms of mixing is the sample delays. So I like to split my MIDI piano into the main body and then the low octaves to create a really nice stereo effect. So I have a slight delay to the right, which creates a bias on the left hand side with the sample delay. And then with the lower octave this is playing, we have a slight bias delay to the right. But it creates this really nice stereo piano. So this is the piano I came up with for the track. So yeah, so again, it's exactly what you expect from a piano ballad or a pop ballad at the start. So the only thing I really thought at this stage that I really need to start adding is thinking what direction I was going to go with the song. And I wanted to have a little bit of an uplifting chorus. So I thought at this point then it would be a good time to start adding drums. Now we want to build up this section. So I wanted it to be sort of a really uplifting, motivational feel. So what I did was I built this drum section here, which I'm going to play for you first with the piano. Now, one of the biggest bits of advice that I could give to you for MIDI drums is to always put every single element of the drum kits into separate tracks. It gives you so much more control over the mix. If you have all of this into like one drum track, not only is it going to sound very mono, but it's also going to be very hard to mix it in properly. So I've broken this all into individual elements, and so then I could get a truer sound. From experience with the drum kits in Logic, sometimes I always like to do a boost around 100 Hertz to add a little bit of punch to the kick. And then I also add a little bit of brightness, a bit of airiness, so the kicks feels really natural. For the snare drum up, we don't really have any sort of effects at all. This is all straight out the tin, other than panning that I've done, and especially I use the chorus on the toms, so the toms could be at the sides of the mix. And in the crash, we have just a little rise in the high end, so it has that nice airy breathness to it, so it glistens through. When you put that all together with the piano, again, that's what you've heard. And then actually on the drum output, because I always like to bust the drums together afterwards, just so we can have control over the volume. It's just good to have. I haven't actually done too much of the processing today on it, because I wanted the drums to kind of sound very sort of like natural and almost boxy and roomy. So we get that really nice sound with the piano. But one little cool thing I did add was I used the drum machine designer at the bottom, because the drummer, which if you, by the way, you haven't heard of in Logic, if you create a new track, for example, you can go over, click drummer here, this is what you'll look at. And I just wanted to add a tambourine, and I used the drummer to create that, because it creates a really nice tambourine effect. Don't have to record anything in yourself, and it just sounds really real and natural. So that was a cool thing to add in as well. Now we get on to the real nitty-gritty and starting to think about what other textures we want to add in. So with the piano, the first thing that's always very easy for me to add is a bass, because the bass can always follow along from the lower octave notes and also follow on from the root note as well. So I used the Solid Soul electric bass. This is a Logic preset which you can find in the bass section. So bass, and then there it is. If you're a Logic user, if you're not a Logic user, I'm sure you can find something similar to this. So this is the bass of the piano. Very subtle, just stays in the background, adds that low warmth to the track. And on top of that now, this is where I'm really starting to think, okay, at this point I have the track loop like this, because this is how I like to build choruses up, is then start adding and start building my track. So then I found this really cool pad sound. So this is Native Instruments Contact, and this is from the, I think it's Ethereal Earth, and this is one of the presets, the Jupiter's Organ. I just came across this because I wanted some interesting texture in there, and this is what I found. Very simple, but it's just nice. As always, I put a chorus effect on this because this is the pad I wanted to be right at the sides of the mix. So I've got the mix on 100%, the intensity on 100%. Just helps really push everything out to the sides of the mix. So far, we've got something that sounds pretty good, like in terms of what we'd want from a piano ballad, especially in the chorus. Something to build on here. So at this point now, I want to start adding some more sort of like drive to the song, adding a little bit more of, you know, like the not only percussive elements, but also rhythmic elements as well. So at this point, I wanted to actually incorporate acoustic guitar. Now, the first thing that came to mind was adding in some guitar scratches, because not only is it percussive, but it also starts to bring across that acoustic element. So this is Native Instruments again. And this is just from the strummed acoustic to literally have a preset where you can get dead loops and, scratch dead loops. And it just sounds really cool with the drums. And it creates this really nice sort of bounce and starts to give some sort of dramatic energy to this ballad. And on top of that as well, we have the strummed acoustic 2 again, which we've just added a little bit of a high boost on. So because I wanted these strings, this guitar rather, to be quite bright. And then I've actually done something quite destructive and put a reverb straight into the channel rather than bus it, because I wanted to give the feel like the guitar was in the room. Because with a piano ballad, sometimes it's really nice to try and make it feel like there's a sort of like live presence to the production. Kind of can help with the emotion of the vocal. So this is the guitars that I've added, which I'll play for you now. Very simple again, but with the piano and the pads. As you can see, it's playing basically quarter notes, but it helps really drive a song on. So when the drums are incorporated as well, you got this really sort of uplifting chorus now. And then I thought at this point now we don't really have anything happening in the higher frequencies. So I went to Native Instruments again. Now I've used Contact and I've used electric vintage guitar with just this very, very simple, again, almost like strummed pattern. What's added here is, so this is without any effects. And I just added a chorus to spread out to the sides of the mix. And then I've put the ROM reverb by Native Instruments to make it really sort of spacey almost, and almost act like a pad as well. So this is that final like bright lift you get in the chorus, and it really helps with the feel. Very simple, it's just sustaining the root chord of the song with a little bit of a sus2 throw in there, but it works. Now at this point now, sometimes you can really start to experiment, see if there's any other just additional textures you want to add to make it sound more interesting. What mine was in this beat was the blips piano. I literally just thought, hey, I want to add something completely random to this production to make it sound more original. Then I found this. It's almost like a bell piano. You can find this as a Logic preset, I believe. Yes, in the vintage B3 organ. I thought I might layer some organ in, then I just found this and I thought, hey, I'm going to record this in. Just to make it sound extra spacey, I added a tremolo, which will make it sound a bit interesting. And I've added the ROM reverb again, making it very spacey because I want to start having that atmosphere. So these are almost built together. So that sits really nicely in the back of the mix. And then the last thing that we are adding is strings. Now there's two different VST strings happening here. Two of them are really cool and I think you should know about. The first one I'm going to show you is these two strings right here. So this is a articulation. I think it's called articulated. I may have completely got that wrong. Yeah, I think I've got it completely wrong. But so this is the rhythm animator, basically, where you can put in a preset like rhythm and it plays it out, and it's really, really good. Like, it's really good for creating some sort of dramatic strings. So you can just hold down the root note and it plays these. There's an octave above and then like the octave below playing, so that just creates this little sort of start of a drive, which sounds really cool with everything else. But on top of that, we needed the whole body of strings as well. So we put it all into a bus, which I actually should have called, and I will call now, strings. And on top of that, we've gone into Omnisphere, and we've got my favourite string VSTs, and that is the Hollywood string section in Omnisphere. So I just turned the attack all the way off because the attack doesn't sound too good on it. In terms of the processing, the only thing is I done for the Native Instruments ones was add a lot more bass and then a lot more highs as well, because it makes it sound better. And I've added some reverb, while the Hollywood strings come pretty good out the tin. So when I layered all these in, we got like the main chords played in, then I've added a counter melody and then some sort of high melody as well. We get this. And this is all the strings together. So you can see it sounds dramatic, and it's really good to add to a string section. So the last thing I did as well was especially for some of the strings, I pushed them out to the sides of the mix just because I wanted to have a little bit of space in the mix for the strings to really sort of be in their own and sort of be one with like the pads of the song. But that is basically everything that we've got going on here. The only thing I can really say is for the mastering, I mastered it just in Ozone 9. So I did a little bit of a raise to the high ends, because for ballads I do like a nice amount of air and breathiness, so I do like to raise the really ultra high frequencies over 10k a little bit just to add that brightness. And then we haven't really got anything fancy going on in the dynamics. The dynamic EQ, there was a couple of problem sections, and kind of had to put this dynamic EQ in at the end because I was raising the highs. It's very destructive and it can cause a lot of problems. So just having that dynamic EQ in there just enables to control that. So if the brightness ever gets too much, then it can be controlled. And I also like to look for a couple of problem frequencies I don't like and then adjust in there as well, with a final push to keep a ceiling of below -1, because people have still got to record their vocals on, so I like to give the artist a bit of room for the vocal, then with the boost, and that's basically the whole song together. So yeah, so this is the production I've come up with, and after that it was just a case of putting everything into the right places to create development, create structure. And this, when you put it all together, is the piano/acoustic ballad that I made. So there you go, guys, that is the beat breakdown for today. If you enjoyed this video, smash the subscribe button right now, as it's the best way to support the channel, and also comment below any other genres, stylistic choice in terms of artist or songs that you want me to do in future videos. I'd be happy to do that. Thanks again for watching. If you made it this far, keep making music, and I'll see you in the next video.